Today's scripture reading is coming from the book of Exodus, chapter 12, verses 1 through 13, and the author writes, "The Lord said to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, 'This month shall mark for you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year for you. Tell the whole congregation of Israel that on the 10th of this month they are to take a lamb for each family, a lamb for each household. If a household is too small for a whole lamb, it shall join its closest neighbor in obtaining one. The lamb shall be divided in proportion to the number of people who eat it. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a year-old male. You may take it from the sheep, or from the goats. You shall keep it until the 14th day of this month. Then the whole assembled congregation of Israel shall slaughter it at twilight. They shall take some of the blood and put it on the 2 doorposts and the lintel of the houses in which they eat it. They shall eat the lamb that same night. They shall eat it roasted over the fire with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. Do not eat any of it raw or boiled in water, but roasted over the fire with its head, legs, and inner organs. You shall let none of it remain until the morning. Anything that remains until the morning you shall burn with fire. This is how you shall eat it. Your loins girded, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and you shall eat it hurriedly. It is the Passover of the Lord. I will pass through the land of Egypt that night, and I will strike down every firstborn in the land of Egypt, from human to animal, and on all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgments. I am the Lord. The blood shall be a sign for you on the houses where you live. When I see the blood, I will pass over you, and no plague shall destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt." Here ends this morning's reading. Thanks be to God for these words of life.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Thank you to Rob. Claudine, thank you for conspiring to get me here today. And to everyone who's offered such hospitality to me, thank you for inviting me as you all reflect a bit on the theology of music. Have you ever had a message that was sitting in your face and yet you didn't know it? Sometimes it's hard to see what's a tree when you're standing in the leaves of the forest. Gump. Is that really a hill or a bump? Am I supposed to be here or maybe somewhere else? Is that supposed to be in my hand or the shelf? Discernment feel urgent. I just don't know what to do. Asking God for a hint. He said, get a clue. Because what you're looking for, I put right in front of you. And if you can't see it, like you're looking for your keys, start panicking. Please, when you start to feel the squeeze, stop. Did you check in your pocket? And right now, are you listening or just watching? It's hard to hear a rap. That's sort of like life. Sometimes I'm just trying to keep up. I'm hearing you. Slow down and become more spiritual. There's a moment in Richard Wright's Native Son where his protagonist, Bigger Thomas, is looking out of an apartment window into a nearby church. And inside they are singing. I don't want to spoil this for you, for those who have not read this classic, tragic American tale, but Bigger has just done something that will almost certainly result in his captivity. Something which his lawyer, and one assumes Richard Wright as well, will argue was inevitable. An evil yet inescapable byproduct of a system that was so broken, so torn, that Bigger Thomas could not escape the destiny that was laid out for him. Consider the irony here. The setting of Native Son is the South Side of Chicago. In fleeing the scene of the crime, he comes to this empty apartment. And here, from the window of the apartment, full of anxiety and sorrow and guilt and anger and fear, time stops for Bigger as the church music begins to vibrate through him. Steal away, steal away, steal away to Jesus. Takes him to a place he longs for, but where he knows he cannot stay. a place of belonging, a place of believing, a place of hope, a place of feeling anchored just for that moment. He is taken there by the Negro spiritual, this sacred canon of songs that are born out of the Black experience of slavery, of being told what to do, of having your name changed and told what your new name is, of having your culture eradicated, of having your life decided for you, a condition from which this country has still not healed, a condition for which many poor people in this country, Black or white, still experience every day. Out of that came music, which W.E.B. Du Bois called sorrow songs, but are really a precursor to the blues. Containers for sadness, containers for hope and faithfulness, containers for memory, containers. They're stories of exodus to sing in a world where exodus had not yet happened for them. But in this moment, in Exodus 12, which we just heard, God says to Moses and Aaron, the leaders of a people bound in a captivity that their rulers would have made permanent. The time has come. Tell your people that on the 10th of the month, they are to take a lamb, one lamb for each household, slaughter it, take the blood, put it up on the doorposts, eat the lamb, all of it, and I will pass over the land of Egypt that night and strike down every firstborn in the land. Do exactly as I say, and no plague will destroy you. This is the beginning of the judgment that I will execute on the gods of Egypt. This is the beginning of your freedom. I am your God. Hope, faith, consoling, all of these, the content of the Negro spiritual, and directions, plain directions. The spirituals are not only known to be beautiful ballads that you can sing, and anybody can sing them. It's not just Black people who can sing them, but also they bear the blues of a people, and also they contained hidden messages within them. Wade in the water, children. Y'all heard that one before, right? You sing that. Sometimes at baptisms we sing it, right? But what it really means is follow the path of water to freedom. Because the bloodhounds couldn't track you and when you went in the water. They couldn't trace the scent of the water. Wade in the water. They would sing these songs right in front of their masters as an act of defiance. This was their way of painting the blood on the doorpost. Only they would know what this means. This was for them. These double meanings are what separate the spirituals from the Negro spirituals. Amazing Grace, for example, is a spiritual, but it is wholly unconcerned with the reality of slavery, even though it was written in 1779, right in the middle of it. Some songs sing religious, and some songs sing spiritual, speaking to a reality that is here and now, speaking to what is happening around us, providing a waypost, a container for the bigger Thomases of this world, helping him make sense out of something that seems to make no sense at all. Steal away. Yes, find peace in God, but steal away. I ain't got long to stay here. We are leaving soon. My Lord, he calls me by the thunder. You're going to sing this in a minute. That means we are leaving during a storm. We are going to leave. The next big storm, we out of here, all right? So the dogs can't track us. Green trees are bending. The green trees of the deep south would bend during a certain time of year, in the spring. That meant we are leaving during a storm in the spring. Everybody heard me? That's what's happening, okay? He calls them by the lightning. Don't forget, a storm in the spring. I ain't got long to stay here. See, all of that right there, just kind of sitting in front of you, if we are attuned to listen in that way. Deep meaning hidden in plain sight. At the Passover, God gives instructions that lead to the very thing that they want most, more than anything else in the world, but give the instructions in a way that is very specific for them. I'm pressing on something, church. You all here at Union Church are discerning something right now, I've heard. Making big decisions right now. You're listening right now. You're praying right now. You're gathering. You're wondering who should come and lead you next. What qualities they should have. What should they not do? Sometimes that list can be longer than the things we want. As long as they not this, we don't really care what, The better question to ask is, what does your freedom look like? What does your freedom look like? In some ways, we're all asking the same questions. The argument across the aisles politically is they're really all answers to the same questions. This is what freedom looks like. No, this is what freedom looks like. And from a ways back, it can be very hard to discern. I mean, should we be telling people what to do with their lives and their bodies? Should we be doing that? How do we know if we can do that? I remember the people during COVID who were saying, let me decide about the vaccine, were saying the same thing that women have been saying about their bodies for decades, and yet they are on opposite ends of the political spectrum. Did y'all notice that? Yeah, I noticed it. We just don't talk about it. It's all good. No, it's all good. It's all good. I understand. And should we even be discussing this in church, right? Is church a place to engage our faithfulness with the problems of the world, or is it a safe space to get away from all the problems of the world? I don't like that. That's a real question, church. And those are not new questions. H. Richard Niebuhr dealt with them in his classic work, Christ and Culture. And there were even black people during slavery who argued, listen, y'all talking about freedom too much. We're talking about this too much. Freedom only comes when you die. Freedom is heaven. Leave the politics alone. The Passover is a political story. It is an act against the Egyptian empire. David and Goliath is a political story. It's about the birthplace of Israel. If you were to edit the politics out of Jesus's words against the temple, you would be turning a stiff board into a wet noodle. I mean, he was killed for sedition against the state. He wasn't killed for doing miracles. He was killed for what he said and did against empire. The Last Supper happened during Passover. I'm not starting an argument here, especially when I'm about to leave in a few minutes. I'm not starting an argument. I'm pointing out that context often decides whether we see that or not. And the argument that I'm making is that context matters, yes, but more than anything, I'm making the argument that sometimes it shouldn't matter. Sometimes what we need to see is right there in front of us, if we have the courage to look at it. There are some things that we need to be, no matter what, no matter what's going on, no matter who's in office. We don't need to say anybody's name or none of that. And the spirituals took what mattered most, what was most important, their faith, their hope, their courage, their freedom, and decided we're going to focus on that. Forget all the details. Let's just focus on that and make it sound beautiful. Now, it wouldn't matter whether you were a slave in Georgia or Virginia or Mississippi. Sing this song and it connects to something inside of us. And I ask this about communities. I ask this all the time at University Church. We're on a college campus. It is so diverse there. And I'm pastor there and have been for nearly 15 years. And I ask this question, out of all of this diversity, what can we all agree on? And it gets very silent there. In other words, what does our spiritual say? What are the words of our spiritual? The thing that we can always connect to no matter what's going on. Don't become more or less political. Like we're talking about that wrong, right? No, it's not about becoming more or less political. It's about becoming more spiritual. And whatever the Spirit then says, now go do that. Whatever what matters most leads us to, Let's go do that. Don't find the person who confirms who you already are. Find the person who can wrestle with you about who you hope to be. Find the person who in the midst of the wrestling can call out the spiritual. Still away, still away. Who doesn't get lost in whatever moment is happening in the world and needs to call names and point blank, but can keep us anchored in our faith and what our faith requires. Sometimes discernment is hard because it's just hard. I mean, no matter what's going on, sometimes it's just hard to figure out what to do, where to be, how should I do this? And sometimes discernment is hard. If we can just be honest, Rob, sometimes discernment is hard is because we already know what we want. What's good for us and not what's good for the gospel. Step out of that context for a moment. Step out of any context. We do it in our own lives. The same behavior. We do what's good for us when sometimes the thing we need to do is right there in front of us. We know that's what I'm supposed to do. That's what I'm supposed to say. And the reality is I'm just scared to do it. I don't know how it's going to turn out. I don't know if they're going to like me anymore if I say this. We sing the songs handed to us when we need to sing more spirituals. I traditionally will end at University Church with a moment of silence. It's in the tradition of Howard Thurman, and it's in the belief that the work of a sermon only begins when the sermon is done. Y'all only really start listening once I shut up. And it comes out of a deeper belief of mine that the Spirit does not speak to me from on high, but is also talking to you. And has been this entire time. Y'all have been like vibing out with my voice in the background. So in this silence, what is the Spirit saying? And take this question with you into that silence. What is your spiritual? What is your spiritual saying? What is most important to you? What do you need to keep in front of you at all times, no matter what's going on in your life, in this church, on your timeline, in the world? What needs to be kept close? What matters most? What is your spiritual? Use the silence. And as you continue with whatever's happening inside of you, you'll take it with you. Outside of this place, you'll share it with someone else, but we can't talk about spirituals without singing a spiritual. We got to sing one. We got to sing it together. We got to sing it with whatever blues might be inside of us, because that is the spirit in which it was written. Steal Away is number 599 in your hymnal. trumpet sounds within my soul. And God long to stay here. Steal away, steal away, steal away to Jesus. Steal away home. God long to stay here. Green trees are bending, poor sinner stands a-trembling. The trumpet sounds within my soul. God long to stay here. Steal away, steal away, steal away to Jesus. Steal away home. I ain't got long to stay here. I hear God calling. God calls me by the lightning. And when the trumpet sounds within my soul, I ain't got long to stay here. Steal away, steal away, steal away to Jesus. Steal away home. I ain't got long to stay here. Tombstones are bursting, poor sinner stands a-trembling. The trumpet sounds within my soul.